Yeah, we're here at Mutijula, right beside Uluru, the home of my ancestors. And it was in that area there called Tempe Downs where I came out. And that's why the police were brought in. And that's how I was taken, at that time by a police officer into Alice Spring. As like so many kids who then now referred to as the stolen generation.
What, different rules?
Rules? There aren't many rules, Leroy. Very few. You fight mean, you win mean. Takes a special sort of man.
Yeah, well, like I said, how much you paying?
You only got one thing on your mind, boy. Dom.
Look, like I told Fletch, I'm not interested in no chump change.
Wow, he's a tough nigga.
I done had it with your shit.
I'll show you something, nigga. I'll show you what a man like me'll do for a nigga like you, sucker.
Of course, bush living was bush. You totally took most of your things from the land you're on. We just lived on the land as people of the land. To us, it was a natural way of being. Being part of all that there is was just the way you was. You didn't see anything any different from you. It was just a way of life that was inclusive of all that there is through life.
A trip into the countless galaxies of your own nervous system. For thousands of years, philosophers and poets have told mankind that there is more inside, that the reality of the external world is only one of millions of realities within the human nervous system.
Life is the binding and the connecting way the oneness is. If you're alive, you connect to everything else that is alive. But that oneness included everything that was around us, and you was raised with that teachings from a child upwards.
For thousands of years, too, men have studied methods of consciousness expansion, techniques for going out of your mind, beyond your routine ways of experiencing.
How old was you when you started taking drugs?
When I first started taking dope and Valium and things like that, I was 12.
Where's the heroin I started talking? Valium and eggs and speeds?
When I started taking heroin, I was 14. My mother started giving it to me.
I was 15 when I started taking heroin and crap.
Because I was homeless
I
when
was dealing by the time I was 16 with my father.
I was homeless when I was 12. And when I was 14, I went back to live with my mother. And within 3 months going back to live with my mother, I was taking heroin. She sent me to work in a parlour, a massage parlour, when I was 14, wasn't it?
That's back in your house?
Yeah, when I was 14, she sent me to work in one of them.
That's the boss with them, eh?
And all the money that I was earning, I was given to her and her boyfriend.
Because people like us grow up with parents who are selling drugs and doing drugs. You learn to live. You end up doing what your parents did because you think that's what's the norm, that's what's normality to you.
Each other as moms and dads and sisters and brothers, because we all stuck up for each other. We all did things together. We all did things like a family would. We would always go to the soup kitchen in the morning, soup places and stuff. We'd always be there, and we just, we'd drink together. We, some of us would sleep together. We did everything together, and that's why it seemed like so much like a family, and everybody looked out for each other.
We can go towards this law through economy, or through medicine, or biology, or religion, or what people call spirituality. It doesn't matter, but there is only one thing that is moving the ocean, and we are like one wave on this, in this enormous, infinite forms of waves. And we show up, and then we go back to the wholeness. We came from the wholeness, from the oneness, and we go back to the oneness.
Are perhaps the most effective method, because the language of the body, the language of the nervous system, is itself biochemical. Another form of direct energy which can produce the psychedelic experience is music. Energy vibrations artfully energized to take us into new dimensions of space, time, and identity.
Like that, like that. Where's I felt that? You're a dozy fucker. Like that. Like that. It's like talking to the fucking wall with you lot, man. I'm gonna like that. They maybe go like that. Oh, God.
Give you all the lowdown. It's a mess too. Tables were filled with gaudy frails chewing on their fingernails. They were waiting for the man from Harlem. Drinks were served, 6 bits of throw. Things were moving kind of slow. Everybody's nerves were getting jumpy. You know, people sort of frivolous like that. All at once the room was still. Men forgot all about the bill. Who should enter but the man from Harlem? Well, look at that cat. It's coming in. He's growling. Listen at him growling. Getting off a mess, ain't it? Oh, you mugging, Satchel, you mugging. Mugging, so help me. I'm going to tell you more about it, Everybody rolled their eyes. Women started heaving sighs. Someone hollered music, lights, and gin. Come on, let's get out here. Everybody cleared a space. They had big, broad smiles on every face. How they all loved to see the man from Harlem. Oh, when he started into step, he filled everyone with plenty pep. He'd twist and squirm, it just was a dirty shame. Everyone was in a daze. Women watched him with amaze. Each one said she'd have the man from Harlem. Can you blame him? Can you blame him? Oh, this man's a man. Just let him mug it. Looked over in the corner, there was a couple frails, and they sure did look kind of low. Another cat walked up and said to the man in Harlem, go over there and see what's the matter with them girls there. And he said, I'm kind of low. He said, I got just what you need. Come on, sister, light up one of these weeds and get high and get about everything. Come on, Satchel. Oh, baby.
right.
Like the sound of these words of power, of vibration.
Yes, in fact, the idea of vibration as being a major facet to not only the ancient Kabbalist's view, but also the shamanic view, was something I discovered and then discovered again. My teacher, Carlos Suarez, in Paris, when I was living in Paris, had taught me about this, and that was back in 1974, and then it rekindled in 1989 after spending time with the Peruvian shamans. I remember the first time I met Jorge Gonzalez Ramirez, who is a Peruvian shaman, and I asked him simple questions like, well, how do you heal somebody? And then I said, well, before you answer that question, I said, how do you know when someone's sick? And he says, oh, I can tell by their vibration. I said, oh, their vibration. Well, how do you do that? And so then he reaches over, and just like I'm reaching over, he grabs my wrist and he starts holding my wrist like this. And then I said, oh, I'm thinking, this guy is pretty primitive. You mean pulse? That's what you mean. You mean pulse. And then he says, that too. And then I realized that when he's speaking about vibrations or bodily vibrations, he's not just speaking about the pulse, but he's speaking about a number of different vibrational energies that are present in the body. Well, after I talked with him and then had an experience with him in which I directly felt his vibration in a shamanic trance state that I entered with him, I then had talked, even before and afterwards, I talked with a number of other shamans in different parts of the world. Anglo-Saxon shamans, Druids. I talked with shamans from different Indian tribes, the Chumash Indians down in Ventura, California, also the Oglala Sioux in South Dakota. And they all keyed me into the idea that vibration was extremely important in their worldview. So when I wrote the book, The Eagle's Quest, I decided that in order for me as a physicist to make sense out of all of this, I'm really going to have to approach it from as much of a scientific viewpoint as I can. So I made up a series of postulates or hypotheses. And the first hypothesis, the major one, is that the shamans see the universe as made of primal vibrational stuff. And that really tied into my understanding of quantum physics, because in quantum physics we talk about quantum waves, which are vibrations, out of which all matter is eventually is created or emerges. So there was a direct tie-in right there.
And these quantum waves, as I understand them, are non-physical in the sense that they are probability waves.
Exactly right. And it's very similar to the shamanic idea. Quantum physics is a very bizarre business. I mean, it's the business of business, and nothing could be further from our normal sense of reality than that business. It deals with things which are, in a sense, unobservable, out of which we feel all observable phenomena will arise or arises. And one of the basic assumptions of quantum physics is the quantum wave nature of all matter. That matter, unobserved, matter on its own, moves and vibrates in waves. But waves of what? Are they water waves? Are they sound waves? Are they electrical waves? No, they're actually waves of nothing. They're called probability waves. And probability is something that you do in your brain, in your mind. You think, and you determine what's probable and what's not probable. So we're dealing with something which is akin to almost mind stuff, if you will. This is not really too much of a surprise. Physicists already had a shock to their system delivered in 1905 when Einstein pointed out that there was no ether to support waves of light. So when a light wave is waving, what is it waving in? It's also waving in nothing. So light is a kind of halfway between material and energetic reality that we see in terms of substance and almost the mind of God, if you will.
You know, the relationship and our relationship system for our people here. See, my people see land ownership as being totally different to the English way of ownership, because ours used to be really the land owns us, and it still is that to us. You know, the land grows all of us up, and it really does. You know, no human is older than the land itself. It just isn't. And no living marsupial is as old as the land itself. Everything that's been and gone with life in the flesh has died. But the land is still here.
It doesn't matter, but there is only one thing that is moving the ocean. And we are like one wave on this, in this enormous, infinite forms of waves. And we show up, and then we go back to the wholeness. We came from the wholeness, from the oneness, and we go back to the oneness. There's one very interesting poem in Zen philosophy, in Zen practice. Where have you been before Father and Mother met? And that's where we go back. We all have been there, but we don't know it. And we always divide the world into pieces, into little pieces. And we think that this camera, for instance, is isolated from the wholeness. It is isolated because it has no consciousness. But if you go into the deep consciousness, there is no separateness. It can't be.
Shit. I'm gonna light that. I'm gonna light that, like. Fucking Frank Aitman's fat. Right, this is a wire wall. You've got to burn this first to get the toxicity out of it.
Gradually blacks, and we can clean it out. And what you clean out is better than what you smoked the first time round. One more pipe, boys. Get away.
Part of language has been handed down to you by your ancestors. We say the granny law has given me my responsibility now that I'm grown up to care for my country, care for my mother, care for everything that is around me, the oneness, the completeness of that oneness, to be responsible in both caring, in every single way, which we call the kanyini, caring with unconditional love, with the responsibility. You feel that so well, that you feel good when you're in that space, and you kind of feel you're living with family when you include everything that is alive in that space. And that it's a huge space, and there's a lot of specimens of everything you can possibly imagine there with you. And then you grow up knowing that these are all your family. You can never feel lonely in that situation. You know, you just can't. How can you when all around you is family members from this ground up to all the trees around you, to the clouds hanging up around you, the birds flying by, the animals and reptiles that are just hidden in the shrub there for now, but can come out if they want to, hunt around for their little food, and then they can become food for us as well. It is a beautiful way of being. It doesn't push anyone out, but it brings everybody in. And the completeness of being who you are, where you are, is a really good feeling. It's a beautiful feeling. I wouldn't exchange it for anything. That's why I'm here, right beside Uluru. I am so lucky.
But I've been out here since I was 12 years old.
In other words, Annie doesn't live there anymore.
That's right.
Are you single?
Yes.
I hope I'm correct in guessing you're not engaged. Am I correct?
Yes.
Are you busy tonight?
Yes.
You say yes?
Yes.
Tomorrow night?
Yes.
You said yes 4 times in a row. You realize that?
Yes.
Apparently, the answer is still no. Bill Eddy, that's you, huh?
Yes.
I don't care how many times you say yes. Bill, are you married?
No.
Engaged?
No.
If you found the right girl, would you like to get married?
Yes, I think I would.
Can you support a wife, then?
Well, reasonably well.
You're walking on quicksand, Bill. Where do you work?
I work for the Bank of America in Glendale, Maine office.
Oh, you work at the Bank of America, and congratulations. This is better than striking oil.
Say now about them at $2, which you owe me.
Listen, Sam, I'm gonna pay them $2, but I can't pay now. I'll pay tomorrow.
That's what you said.
But now listen, Sam, ain't we been dubbed long time?
Yes, we is.
And ain't we been sticking together through thick and thin?
Yeah, that's just the reason I'm gonna send out on you. You got too sick for me.
Man, I'm gonna pay you tomorrow.
That's what you said. Take your tomorrow and give me today.
Man, I'm gonna pay you tomorrow.
Or your tomorrow is too far away.
Just one day.
And every dawning I've been waiting in vain. I find each morning brings only rain.
You mean to say that I'm a cloud?
How can I borrow tomorrow today?
You have to borrow, I'm gonna pay you.
With clouds around me, all heavy and gray.
Keep insisting I'm a cloud, huh?
What tomorrow may bring don't mean a thing.
Listen, hey, boy, I'm gonna keep that money.
Take your tomorrow and give me today.
Style of life may change. That instead of being involved in productive activity, they claim that they feel better, and yet this feeling better is alongside of a business where they've withdrawn from life, they're disregarding their personal appearance, they don't really care about how they function in the rest of the world, and they're involved in a kind of a pseudo-philosophic concern with life and themselves, with a real absence of contact with other human beings. So it's this interesting business of a kind of withdrawal and the statement that this kind of life makes them feel much better and more insightful.
Delícia! Essa música é uma delícia. Que delícia! Dança, muchacho! Rebola esse cuerpo, dança, dança, baila, baila. Música. Essa música
For me, when I think about the question, where are we? I immediately go to the place of that we stand in more than one world at once. Because we stand in a world of incredible hope and possibility and miracles happening every moment of every day. And we stand in another world of a desecration of the sacred happening every moment of every day. So for me, it's where we are is standing with one foot in both worlds.
We're making the choice, and that is a way that we explored, we tried to reconnect people with the big picture. The thing that's been lost is that, Earth is the source of all life. It's not a place where we just extract resources from. And so in order to bring that connection back and that awareness that we actually are a part of this web of life, then sometimes you need to have concrete examples, because we live in a society where everything's prepackaged, presented to us, and it's consume, waste, and there's not a lot of give back, and there's not a lot of knowledge or awareness of where are these things coming from. And so as a part of this exhibit, what we wanted to show people that things they use in their daily life actually impact things around the world, whether you want to call it the butterfly effect or whatnot. But one very simple example is a cell phone. We pretty much all use them at this point around the world. And we were looking at how does that impact a species and a habitat on the other side of the planet. And it actually directly impacts the mountain gorilla. And there's only 600 mountain gorilla left in the wild on a reserve that's on the border of the Congo. And why does that impact them? Because the mineral coltan is mined there. And so far that's the only place in the world that this mineral is found that's in every single cell phone. So when you're sitting there talking on the phone, we're trying to generate awareness of I'm impacting mountain gorilla habitat on the other side of the world. And it's a reality. And what are we going to do about that? You can take steps such as not upgrading to new cell phones all the time, recycling your cell phone. There's something like 500 million cell phones in landfills. And we just need to start generating awareness that our consumption as humans on Earth is impacting the planet as a whole.
I reflect back again to a time when I was in the trees. And it's a time that as soon as I go there, it brings tears, and I know that it will for the rest of my life. When I was listening to the chainsaws every day, and having to watch these ancient trees hit the ground every day, and not being able to go and amuse myself and shut down, and just bearing witness day in and day out, and feeling myself and every last shred of hope being strangled and killed. And then I would somehow find a way to take another breath and go another moment, and then something else would happen, and it was so hard for me to hold on to hope. And then the enraged logger cut a tree intentionally in the direction of activists and took a young man, David Gypsy Chain's life, 24 years old, and killed him. And that day is when I decided I didn't want to have hope anymore, because I thought, well, why should I care? That my passion for caring about nature is intrinsically woven with my passion and my love for people, that I didn't see them as separate. And I thought, well, why should I have more love and commitment for people in this planet than they have? And I just wanted to give up and go, I'm going to go, climb some tree in an area where nobody will find me. I'm just going to go somewhere that's not under threat, and I'm just going to go climb it, and I'm not going to tell anybody where I'm going. And I'm going to give up on caring. And the reason the tears come is because I'm still so present to that pain. And yet, that's the power of where hope came from for me, because in that moment of being so devastated, I was literally in the fetal position on my tiny little platform, 180 feet up in the air, rocking back and forth, crying and sobbing and going, I don't want to do this anymore. And the answer that came to me was, Julia, If you have hope in your heart, and even if you're the only person left who has hope in their heart, if that hope is committed in action, then there's hope in the world. If you're the only person left, as long as your hope is committed in action, then hope is alive in the world.
Fantasy about the future, and the future is sort of like it is today, but only not as bad. In other words, it doesn't do harm. Rather than people understanding that the construct that we have, the civilizational construct that we have, is the harm itself. You couldn't design something that is more harmful to both people and place. And so when we think about the future, we have to really accept the concept that nothing will be as it is today, except our hearts and our values and the things that have always made us humane. But in terms of the way society works, or the way economies work, or the way transportation works, or the way banking works, or the way cities work, or all those kind of things that we take for granted now, nothing will be remotely similar to what it is that we see today. This is not like a fix. This is not like if we can just get the carbon out of our gas pipes, exhaust pipes, or if we can just get to organic farming, or we can just, clean up our waterways and skies, or we can just make our cities green, or we can just, all those things are necessary and needed, but they themselves do not in any way describe the future that is coming. It's the death of what basically the white, Indo-European civilizations have so successfully, spread about the world is a dream, is a vision, is an ideal, if you will, and that is not maybe corrupt in its intention, but it's certainly corrupt in its application, and it's corrupt in its effect on both people and culture and place. And so therefore, that is not something that you can amend or change or, fix, and then therefore everything's going to be okay. We just had a little, course correction here in the 21st century, and then we're going to keep going. That's not going to happen.
Listen, as someone who has respect for the world, has respect in the actions they take, understands the repercussions of the decisions they make, whether it's on what impact it may have on other species, habitats, regions, and people who make conscious decisions, and whether it's in their consumer decisions or in their daily actions. And it's also, so that's one side of the thing. And the other thing, not just awareness and consciousness, but also, what are they going to give back? Because many times we just take, but you need to reach a point where you say, I need to give back. I need to help spread the message. Find ways you could spread the word, find organizations you could get involved with, volunteer your time. There's millions of organizations in the world that need help and support. They're the ones on the front lines creating the change. And I think we all have a responsibility to do something to give back.
They resonate with you, take on your illness, and then because they know how to heal themselves, that's right, they can get rid of it. They can handle your illness better than you can.
That's right. That's basically what they do. Don Salone, a very powerful shaman that I met in Peru, he was 7 years old, a maestro shaman, would heal in ways that were almost unfathomable to me. One way of healing, or just of getting my vibration to change, would be to make me get sicker. He would blow this very obnoxious tobacco smoke all over me, and then I would throw up or sweat or something. And as a result of that, I would be getting rid of whatever particular illness that was bothering me. And at the time, because I had traveled through many different time zones and had gone from the weather patterns that were, at that time I was living in New Mexico, to the jungle patterns, which are very hot and humid. Whenever I go through a weather change, I suffer from chronic sinus headaches. So I was getting headaches a lot of the time, and he could heal those by just doing the ceremony with me. And he would heal them in a very bizarre way. In fact, I can't imagine any Western doctor doing this. But one of the ways they do it is they spit on you. And another thing they do is that they actually apply their lips to whatever, like for example, if I have a headache, he would apply his lips to my head and actually apply suction with his mouth and suck the headache away. And one time he did this, in fact, the time I had a real splitting headache, it was gone and like that. I mean, he just sucked and gone. It was gone. It just vanished like real quickly.
Your European son. You spit on those under 21.
The word hallucination is defined as an apparent perception, as by sight or hearing, for which there is no real or external cause.
But now your blue cards are gone. You better sit so long. Bye, bye, bye.
I don't usually see something that's an actual real thing that I could describe as, you know. Sometimes, one time I saw a lot of faces. Just all these faces appeared in front of me. And they were children's faces and oriental faces and old faces and just all kinds of different faces in front of me. And one time I looked in the mirror and I saw just my face just went through all these changes of different emotions and ages, and you know, I could feel all of the things that I saw.
You made your wallpapers green. You want to make love to the sea. Your European son is gone. You better sit so long. Your clouds keep you goodbye.
From the very beginnings of unrecorded time, men have reached for substances in the world around them that would alter, extend, and materially change their perception of reality.
I could see all around me, no matter which way I was facing. It was just real frightening. I went into this survival land, and I was afraid everyone was going to go there, and that things were never going to be the same, and that everyone was going to become real vicious and hateful, and just climb on top of each other to get what they wanted. And I never thought the world was going to be any different than that.
Everything turns into vibrations. It's like everything is falling apart. My eyes are an electronic microscope, and I can see all the atoms in everything. Everything pulsates. I took the acid around 2 in the morning and started reading this book. And there are sections in it that give instructions to a person who is dead. And they tell him to do certain things and hang on to certain things and let go of other certain things, allowing the experience to happen to you naturally. And in the course of that, I got very confused as to whether I was alive or whether I was dead. I mean, it was really very, very far out to just not know whether I was alive or dead. And so if I'm dead, what is happening? What's been happening with my life if I've been dead all this time? You know, what is the truth behind all of this?
do they extend the range of the human mind? Or do they simply offer an easy escape from the demands of this world and time?
I get up and make love and play the guitar and eat, go down to the beach and go swimming and occasionally write some things when I feel like writing and think about how I'm going to get a little more money to not starve to death. And
it gets you out of that whole intellectual academic framework that you've been taught to be in all of the years that you've gone to school.
Not only emotionally, but socially.
I believe that one of the biggest examples of separation syndrome in our lives is how we have such a profound disposability consciousness in this culture. And I use the example of when you say you're going to throw something away, where's away? There's no such thing. And where away actually is social justice issues and environmental justice issues. Every plastic bag, plastic cup, plastic to-go container, that is the petroleum complex in Africa, Ecuador, Colombia, Alaska, you name it. Every paper bag, paper plate, paper napkin, that is a forest. Everything that is called waste or disposable is the ways in which we are saying that it is acceptable to throw our planet and its people away. When I started thinking about disposability consciousness, I went and asked a lot of Native people that I know if in their original language, if they had any words for waste, disposable, or trash. And I have yet to find in any traditional language words for waste, disposable, or trash. Because all traditional knowledge knows that there's no such thing. I saw a great sign once that said it's only called waste if you're not using it properly. And we have a wasteful consciousness, we have a disposability consciousness. We've lost our connection to the sacred. And for me, disposables are one of the huge magnifiers of how we've lost our connection to the sacred.
Using beauty instead of fear to inspire people to act is a very exciting path to creating change. It's an opportunity to draw people in, and by drawing people in, at the same time, providing ways or opportunities or resources for them to turn that inspiration into action. And when, especially through our exhibits, for example, we will have a couple different environmental topics, and the artists present their viewpoint about that. And then we also provide facts and resources of, you know, okay, if this artwork draws you in, makes you pay attention to the topic, then what can you do about it? And whether that's, you know, work with local NGOs in your area, whether that's, you know, personally take some steps that change your lifestyle to better the environment and so forth, that is, you know, what we are trying to promote, is this path to change.
For me, what I talk to young people about now is I always ask them, how many of you have been told you're the leaders of tomorrow? And they always raise their hands. Every kid's been told, you're the leader of tomorrow. So you go to school, get good grades, you can go to college, get good grades, so you can get a job and get good money, so you can be a good consumer, have a house, have a mortgage, and die. Whoa, that's inspiring. And so I tell them, I say, I wish we lived in a simple world where you could be the leaders of tomorrow and that for today you could just play and experience life. But we live in a world that is calling you to be the leaders of today. The leaders of today. I also feel that we need to be really mindful on the intergenerational connections as well, because our elders need that youthful vitality to infuse in the world, and we need the wisdom and the roots that our elders have to offer us. We live in a society of attention deficit disorder and collective amnesia. That's our society. And so our elder wisdom offers us the response to that amnesia and that attention deficit disorder. It roots us back into where we've come from and what lessons we can learn so that we can then co-create together between the generations. And I feel that's absolutely vital in helping restore global community.
They essentially are the voice of the natural world right now in terms of the exhibits we produce. And they have this amazing opportunity to submerge themselves in an environment and through their own sources of inspiration around them create something visual that could be anything from painting, photography, multimedia, conceptual installations. And by sharing that work of art with the public, they open a whole new way of looking at things. Artists essentially provide new ways to generate dialogue about sometimes harsh and what could be sometimes harsh or dry topics, and I think they also can help create change, and that's the most important thing. You know, our goal is to use this inspiration-based approach to inspire change, and many times it's a fear-based approach that people are being presented with, such as, you know, Al Gore's presentation on climate change is essentially before and after. And it worked, it was effective because it was kind of the shock factor of, oh my gosh, global warming is real, it's happening, what are we supposed to do? And I think through the arts, it's a more exciting, gradual approach to explore what's happening around us.
Well, what can scare you is that all structure can break down. Everything can become one, and that's sort of scary. Another thing that can happen is when you're really far out, things just can disappear.
I think a lot of kids say that at first, and then after they're through talking to Dr. Fisher and I, they change their mind. Because we certainly think rebellion is a very healthy thing, and we like rebellion. And we think great changes in society come out of rebellion. And we think that we adults have kind of screwed things up. We haven't done a very good job in the adult world. With the bomb hanging over us in Vietnam, with our crazy ideas about censorship, our crazy sexual attitudes, our abortion laws, we haven't done a very good job. However, I do think that fooling with LSD is like Russian roulette. I don't think it's like swallowing goldfish. I don't think it's spinning a hula hoop or crowding a lot of people into a telephone booth. I think, unfortunately, this can be a permanent, long-lasting, damaging situation. So I'm all for rebellion. I think a great deal of good can come out of it. I hope people who are considering using LSD, however, will think of some of these things. We don't know them all. We do know a few, though. And one of the ones that we really know is that they may be damaging themselves permanently.
Drugs are going to flip a lot of people out and probably kill a lot of people. But if they haven't the sense to find out all there is that's been written about anything they're going to use, and if they haven't the discretion to decide whether or not, in the final analysis, they're capable of handling it, then that's their problem. They will flip out, and that's how it is.
In the old days, the way to get out of a situation was boxing. If you want to earn a bit of money, you want to become a professional, you want to get a bit of money, people went to boxing. So, and it was physical. And it was more, the environment, the working environment was more physical. Now you look around and there's no jobs there for the kids. And same as anything else, they want to make a few bob. And then you've got the people who've got these drugs. Right, okay, go and sell these. Take them into schoolyards, where I know from personal experience, 11-year-olds have been given cannabis and things in schoolyards. And it comes down to an economic climate, if you like. That person will grow up to be 18, 19, perhaps meet a girl, get married. Drug problem is still there. The children see the parents with the drug problem, and it's just a never-ending circle. When the factories close down, and the docks closed down, and you've got the coal tippers gone from the docks. The BP closed down, then the steel company cut back, and then you've got all the building firms that were pulling up. Depression can do a lot of things to a lot of people. I can understand why these kids get so depressed and turn to something like drugs, alcohol, whatever. You know, it's a sad indictment of our society that at 30 years of age, you're on the rubbish heap.
It's not that the city was changed, it's the people that's changed.
Tashi. Where is the
trade all these jobs, I don't train agriculture. We're there so much to find out que el maíz se ocupa fuerte como será, como se maíz if I didn't take any action of my agriculture, then you could inshallah we'll get rid of Taliban and Al-Qaeda here, improve the security of this nation, and more agriculture, more other situation. Oh, you have to tell us which villages need wells so we can start digging wells.
The world of human feelings has been much less explored, and the whole of the universe put together. But now it's late. What have we been doing all these thousands of years? We've been congratulating ourselves on our progress, going faster and faster and faster. When in reality, we've only been getting further away from ourselves. Lucy, take my place, will you?
Struggled with the question, how a civilization with such an extensive knowledge of math, science, and astronomy could become extinct. One popular belief, supported by much circumstantial evidence, is that the Maya outstripped their resources. Their extinction, coupled with the fact that the conquering Christians destroyed practically every record they could find, contributed to the enigma. Further adding to these losses is the fact that the most developed religious, mystical, and intellectual knowledge of their culture was only known by a small select group of shaman kings and priests. Today we repeat the same mistakes on a global scale, destroying information and resources that could hold the keys to our survival in the future. The keepers of this knowledge are the disappearing shamans of today, who preserve timeless ecological wisdom while embodying a lifestyle that puts them in harmony with nature. Aside from being priests and performing artists, shamans were the first medical specialists in indigenous communities who used traditional methods that have been effective in treating both physical and psychological ailments. Shamans play a crucial role in helping scientists discover the potentials of plants.
Halfway there, and suddenly I realized I lost this thing.
Your protection.
My protection. I thought, my God, what's going on here? Well, 2 years later, I'm now with the Anglo-Saxon shamans, and I repeated the story to them. I said, what's that all about? Why did this thing sort of like pop and vanish? I mean,
it lost itself, in other words.
In a way. He says it was a good thing that happened. He says because this is a Norse symbol of magic, and Norse magic doesn't work in that part of the world. Things circulate differently there. And it was good for you that that wasn't there. And in fact, they were talking about people who, misguided though they were taking crystals from different parts of other continents even, and implanting them around Stonehenge to enrich it in some way. Well, what's happened since then is rather remarkable. Stonehenge has now been screened by a great big fence, and people can't just walk into it anymore. The Druids can't even do their ceremonies there anymore. So it's like they really changed the whole energy of that place. So there's something to this. I mean, there's something to little things having some kind of resonant effect even in the ground. And crystals do vibrate, and it's very possible that there's some kind of vibrational entrainment that throws things off and makes people feel ill at ease when you have something like this going on.
Well, one of the other points you make is that shamans will do anything to affect your belief system, whatever they can do, because they need to work with that in the resonance. So in a way, it's kind of funny. It's like, how do you know that any of these principles are in any sense objective?
Yes. This was the most difficult thing I had to come to. First of all, let me address that point, and then I'll address the difficulty that I was having coming into the shamanic world in terms of my objectivity.
Yeah, we just have a couple minutes now.
Okay, but the first point is that shamans are like tricksters, and they will use conjuring magic to convince you that you need to change your ways in order for them to work with you. So if you're overlooking this and watching it, it looks, you could say, well, this is an obvious trick. He's not really pulling something out of the guy's stomach. But it depends on, what's important is what does the person who's having this happen to him believe? What do they believe? And in terms of objectivity, in terms of my experience with the shamans,
if it's your stomach, you may feel
differently. Yeah. But in terms of my own experience with them, I found there's no way I could look at these guys or examine them as Joe Friday, just collecting the facts, man. I had to really get involved, and that meant I became a participant. In a way, I entered a quantum reality with them. There was no way I could just observe them without myself being observed by myself, and that is something that is magical and wonderful, and taught me an awful lot about who I am and what my mythos is, and what's running this being as it goes through the life process.
Well, there's so many levels of complexity. On the one hand, we have the mutual sharing of vibrations. On the other hand, we have the breaking down and creation of new structures of belief systems. And you just mentioned the whole notion of parallel universes, which is so important to shamanism.
Yes, the shamans are able to enter into other levels of reality which are parallel to our own. They can do parallel physical reality things. And appear in different places at the same time. I mean, I didn't see this personally, but they told me they were able to do it. But they also are able to enter to the death realm, in which they can actually see living dead spirits coming alive.
Such a rich and deep topic, Fred, but our time has run out. Thanks so much for being with me, Fred Alan Wolf.
Thank you, Jeffrey. It was a real pleasure.
And thank you for being with us.
Because I was curious about it. I had several friends who had taken it, and they told me that they had, very good experiences with it, and I was just curious.
Well, I was curious what I read and what I've heard, and if it could help, I was just looking for something.
Sort of because I had heard it makes you not only closer with yourself, but with everybody, this sort of love, peace type thing. And I really wanted to find out if this was true.
It was a kick. It was a thrill. When I first started taking it, it was to explore myself. Well, I found I could only go so far before I just ran dead up against myself, and I couldn't go any farther.
The fact of the matter is, the use of these drugs is on the rise, and interesting to inquire into cause and effect.
And an afternoon of tea for the ladies of Africa. They are too busy pounding rice for the next meal. Yet there are light spots in this dark land. Here is a beauty parlor. She doesn't put in permanent waves. She's paid for trying to take them out. Anyway, she's trying to take out something.
Reasonably similar. And I was in bed. And I was in bed with a young lady. And I turned and I looked at her face. And her face distorted into sort of a flesh-dripping monster face. The features became drawn and like jowls hung, and she grew fangs. And I quickly turned my head away. And I told myself this couldn't be so.
I've been busted twice since then, Pitt McCauley's. And they gave me Thorazine because they said that I was hyper. They said I needed to sleep, and I said that I could go to sleep myself. And they said, well, you should take this medicine. It should help you.
Thorazine, it looks like it tastes like gasoline. They give it to you when you're feeling mean. Thorazine.
They threatened me with Napa, and I'm only 16 years old, and I really don't think Napa is quite a place to spend the rest of your life, and that's the way they were sounding. So I got real scared and took off, and here I am right now.
So at this point you find a meeting point between science and spirituality. Both recognize that there is an essential reality, that it is one, that all derives from that oneness. Both come to the point that it is an energy. Science doesn't yet recognize that it is conscious, though the focus of all its research today is really at that level of what is consciousness. Even in physics, a subatomic particle changes behavior according to the observer's intentions. And it has touched consciousness, but not yet recognized that consciousness is prior to the energy and is the cause of the energy, which the spiritual scientists recognized. They went one more step. The consciousness itself is a consciousness of bliss. It is a blissful one self-existence that consciously pours out to become the cosmos and the Big Bang, etc. And so they said, everything in the universe is ultimately an expression of a divine bliss. But in the present forms, the divinity, its consciousness and its bliss is more covered than revealed. When that bliss leaks out through forms, we see beauty. We experience love. We see harmony. And ultimately, the whole evolution is meant to manifest that divine bliss. We ourselves, as conscious, evolving beings, can realize that consciousness and its full creative power and its divine bliss in the whole expression of life. So the journey of life, they said, was to realize our origin and then to manifest that divine potential in us. So science and spirituality meet at one point, and then the spiritual shows the further way, which science can also follow, or it can simply accept. That's left to us.